"Hey, where are you going? Wait up!" a young man shouts from across the street. Standing at 5'8" roughly, his slender body navigates the crowd with ease, dyed blonde hair waving in the wind as he runs down a main street filled with traffic. With his hand up in the air, waving, he's about to walk over a zebra crossing with haste. A horn goes off loudly for 5 or so seconds. "Hey, watch it! It's a crossing, you fucker!" the young man shouts at the driver while waving his hand. The driver seems furious that a kid walked out onto the crossing without even looking in either direction. The driver, with a sour face, starts flipping off the young man as he walks across. "Hey man, I haven't spoken to you in a while. What have you been up to?" the young boy speaking to a tall, thin man in his middle 30s, a scruffy brown beard with a silver outlining from his age, with dark blue eyes, a scar on his lip. The scar was probably awarded to the man during a fight in his younger days. The left ear of this person seems to be clipped, almost as if a train conductor took their ticket clipper, then clipped his earlobe with it. A run-down, dark blue suit is this man's attire. It doesn't look cared for at all. In fact, nothing this man is wearing looks cared for, apart from his glasses, which are obviously prescription glasses with photochromic lenses which react to the light. Even on a dark gray day like today, his lenses have gotten darker as he looks to the clouds in the sky. The frame of his glasses, thin and sleek, with small rectangle lenses. "I haven't been up to much, but I'm more worried about you, Damien. You really should be looking both ways even when using a crossing. Also, what's with the hair now?" Damien seems a bit flustered now that he showed his anger over something Damien considers a simple thing. What do you expect? Drivers nowadays, they never give priority to us walkers, so screw 'em. Damien screwed up his face in disgust. "But my hair, now that's a topic, it's the fad. All the girls love young blondies nowadays." Damien suddenly brushes his hair in such a way that he can do a stylish pose at the same time. "So, Mr. Rick Murdoch, where are you heading? I'll keep you company and walk ya, I ain't got nothing better to do." Damien looks both ways as if to imitate the correct procedure one should do before walking onto a crossing. Rick ignores his false gesture and starts walking down the street. Rick takes long strides with nothing in his hands. They wave back and forth like pendulums in a grandfather clock. Damien is taking twice as many steps just to keep up with Rick's stride. "So, where are you going? Hookers perhaps?" Damien smirks, probably hoping there might be some truth in what he has just said. "Work, some of us need to earn money. I've got bills to pay," Rick retorts. Talking about bills and being paid, as Damien's sentence trails off, Rick finds himself being thrown from the street onto the road. Someone, whatever it was, must have had a hefty weight behind it. It was almost like he was being pushed by a solid wall. Rick landed almost dead center of the road. The oncoming vehicle's brakes engage. Screeching can be heard all the way down the street. The vehicle, a truck, was articulated and carrying a heavy load. There was no way it could stop in time with all that weight behind it. Rick's heart was thumping so hard at this point, he rolled himself backwards, legs overhead. With the sudden motion and speed, he ended up rolling to his feet, standing on the white lines in the middle of the road. The truck still passing by at a great speed. "Fuck me," Rick gasps while breathing hard and fast. The sound of an engine starts up, from the speed of the revs and the sudden throttling from the engine. The sound of a motorbike getting ready to take off can be heard nearby. Rick is looking down at his hands, the shaking can be felt throughout his body. Breathing is still heavy, the fear of death is still about. Damien's voice can be heard, he is shouting something to Rick. "What? I can't hear you," Rick mumbling to himself. He starts to hear the motorbike again and still looking at Damien, he looks in the direction Damien is pointing, turning toward the sound. By the time Rick turns himself around, a red blur appears in front of him, his vision turns to black. With the sensation of water being felt running over his face, its warmth brings panic along with a high-pitched ringing noise. It's never ending, the pain, there is so much pain. A world where one would consider it a realm of fantasy, a world of strange lands, full of mysterious and deadly creatures. A world where mighty deities reside, where supernatural phenomena and magic is fact. Long ago, The inhabitants of planet Earth could only conceive of such a setting, within their wildest dreams and their imagination. Today, this fiction and fantasy will become reality. Welcome to Hebrew Aleph, Hebrew Tav, Hebrew Kaf, Hebrew Lamed, Hebrew Hey, Hebrew Aleph, Hebrew Resh, Hebrew Tzadi. Ooh, where am I? Rick speaking to himself, feeling battered like he has been run over by a bus, along with a hangover the size of the moon. He tries to stand up but discovers that he is struggling to stand. He tries to see where he is, with the realization that everything in front of him is pitch black. My eyes, I can't see. Panic has started to set in, Rick now trying to reach for his face, blinking as hard as he can, making sure his eyesight is not failing him. Then rubbing his eyes using his hands. Rick came to realize his hands and face are different, gentle touching all over his hands and face. The sensation and feel was akin to having massively swollen hands touching a face which had changed drastically due to being swollen as well. His hands felt slow and clumsy. What has happened to me? Rick speaks out aloud once more, hoping for an answer. As Rick waits for any kind of response, silence is only returned. A few moments later, the continuous sound of water dripping and then hitting the ground can be heard. As Rick focuses on the dripping noise, his sight starts to slowly return, seeing only dark shades, his eyesight blurry. He starts to blink more naturally, patiently waiting to see if it improves further. With something new to focus on, he forgets about the dripping water. With his eyesight being terrible, eyes barely able to recognize any of the shapes in front of him. Every direction he looks is just different shades of gray. He closes his eyes one more time, hoping it would help. With his eyes closed once more, he tries to focus on the sound again. A new sound appears, the sound of air rushing through an open-ended funnel. A sudden quiet growl is heard in tempo with the breathing. Panic started to set in again, his heart beating faster with the sudden thought he might not be alone. Trying harder to listen for any other sounds, a dull bell-like noise can be heard but stopped literally seconds later. With the urgency to see again, he opened his eyes again. The fear of being prey for a cave bear is not something Rick wanted to be. With this newfound fear, his eyes spring open. "Ha, I can see," Rick blurts out, suddenly covering his mouth with his chubby hands in fear of being heard. His vision cleared and became precise. Rick's impatience is clear as day, as a cold sweat can be felt forming around his neck and face. With his vision now restored, he gave the area a quick scan. He can see himself lying on what looks to be straw bedding made from twigs, feathers, and scraps of soiled leather. The rest of the area looks to be a large, damp cavern. A possible exit to the cavern can be seen across from Rick. Multiple straw-like beds are dotted around the cavern. From the quick glancing left to right, Rick noticed his eyesight was a lot sharper than what it used to be. It wasn't until a few moments passed he noticed could only see in shades of gray. His eyesight was so normal to him, he would never have guessed it. If it wasn't for the fact that he noticed his eyesight was better, Rick wouldn't have noticed at all. It seemed completely natural to him. Rick is currently lying on his back in what seems to be a straw bed. Remembering that his body felt swollen, he brought his arms and legs into view by looking downward. What he saw completely shocked him. His arms and legs looked like fat, swollen baby limbs, with warts, dotted about every now and then. Because of his ability to only see in grayscale, he wasn't sure what color of skin he had, but he was sure it was not the original pale complexion he once had. Achoo! A small sneeze is heard coming from beside Rick, being too preoccupied with himself and the surrounding area. Rick's head suddenly snaps to his right, panic setting in. His heartbeat thumped loudly throughout his chest. The thought of anything being right next to him never crossed his mind. After all, if there was a dangerous creature beside him, surely it would have eaten him by now. His eyes widen as round as overcoat buttons. What lay there in front of him could not have been real. What looked to be a large, swollen, baby-like creature. Wart-covered body, big eyes, long, thin nose, sharp teeth, pointy ears. What looks to be some kind of ugly troll in front of him. With its big, large, overcoat-button eyes, it stares blankly back at him, watching Rick's every move. Hello," said Rick, waiting for a reply back. Do you understand me? Do you know where we are? What are you?" With no response from the creature beside him, he looked at the other straw beds once again to see if he missed any others. All empty, it seems. Assessing that the creature beside him is currently no threat, he remembered there was also something else in this cave with him. A gentle growl-like snore can still be heard in the background, remembering he could be dinner at any moment. Looking at the exit from the fact that there is no light coming through it, he can only assume it's leading to another section of the cave, and it's not an exit to the outside world. Believing it's now time to act, Rick tries to stand up. The effort he used to stand up was far beyond the normal measure. It was such a struggle due to his swollen baby-like body. He was out of breath just from standing up, starting to breathe heavily and almost losing his balance once or twice during the process. He successfully managed to make himself upright. Looking around from his new view, he noticed the world seems a lot larger compared to his previous world. Or was it that he was smaller? Looking at his hands in their babyish state, a thought crossed his mind. Maybe the world wasn't bigger, but rather he was smaller. Managing to stand up without making too much noise, it was now time to start walking, as he started to walk for the first time since coming to this world. It felt like he was learning to walk again, considering how much effort it was just to stand up and then start walking. Running was not an option at this moment. If he was considered as prey, it would be an easy catch for the hunter. Breathing heavy, Rick starts to slowly waddle towards the cave exit. "You can do it, you can do it, you can do it," murmuring to himself as he waddles. The noise he can hear definitely sounds like a large creature is sleeping just around the corner. As Rick proceeds towards the exit, his legs start to lumber up a bit more, but just walking alone feels like it's draining his stamina a lot. He managed to walk from the straw bed to about halfway towards the exit, and he's already considering stopping for a breather. Breathing heavy and quickly, feeling his heart pounding against his chest, the fear builds as he approaches the exit. He can hear the creature's snoring getting louder and louder. A bad feeling starts to grow in his stomach, butterflies growing as his mind overthinks the situation. The creature could be anything: a wolf, a bear, maybe something he has never seen before. All these thoughts are rushing through his head. After all, just literally feet away from him, a small baby-like creature is currently watching him with vivid interest. Just thinking how crazy that is makes Rick even more paranoid of what is to come. Rick looked back at the baby creature, seeing the creature look back at him, just like how a baby experiences new toys and food. Feeling the potential that he could at any moment become either toy or food, with every step taking him closer to either doom or freedom. As he approaches and slowly looks around the corner, ideas start popping into his head. Maybe he can sneak past it, distract the creature. Nothing can be seen yet. He creeps a little further around the corner, a sudden snort, hiss, and then silence from the creature. Rick gasps, holding his breath in, waiting, praying for nothing to happen. Moments pass, which feels like an eternity for Rick. Then suddenly the snoring continues. A sigh erupts from Rick. He carries on creeping around the corner, slowly but surely, holding onto the side of the wall as he makes progress. A very large foot starts to appear. One toe at a time comes into view. The foot is a dark green color, resembling a human foot, but covered in large warts with thick toenails. Every so often the foot will twitch in tandem with the snoring of the creature. The leg which the foot was attached to is about the same size as Rick. The rest of the creature's body now comes into full view as Rick waddles around the corner like a timid would do. A very large, fat, hairless creature sits there, propped up against the entrance of the cave. Its forehead slopes back, having a flat face, broad nose, and large pointy ears. Rick, wide-eyed, stares for a few seconds. "A troll," Rick said in a high-pitched voice, reaching for his chest, feeling his heart beating fast and heavy. His exhaustion level can be felt rising due to the panic being created. "I need to get out of here," Rick shouted, whilst in motion and trying to run. His legs felt numb, heart pounding. His frustration builds with the lack of movement and the terrible lack of precision from his body, trying to run towards the exit past the large creature. A silence envelopes the surrounding area. Goosebumps grow across Rick's skin, the small strands of hair slowly bending upwards. "Why me?" Shouting at the top of his lungs, his exhaustion levels cause him to fall over, breathing so heavy as he tries to crawl forward as his chest hurts. His vision starting to blur and fade, Rick can feel himself blacking out. "No, I can't." With the energy slowly being sapped and leaving his body, Rick's eyes close for a final time. A white light appears, brighter than the sun. It envelopes the entire area. Rick turns to look left and right, only seeing a white plane. "There's nothing," said Rick, turning himself around to check behind him. "No, am I dead?" The look of despair falls over Rick's face. "Is this heaven or hell? Am I meant to live the rest of my existence here?" said Rick, expecting some sort of reply. Falling to his knees with his entire weight. No pain." Rick raises his hand into the air, suddenly striking his face over and over again. His face looked as if nothing even happened. "Why is there no pain?" said Rick. A few moments passed as he stared at the ground. With a sudden rage, he launches both his fists into the ground over and over again, screaming with anger. Then slamming his head into the ground, hoping to feel something, anything, leaving his head where it landed. He gasps for air from the sudden outrage. His breathing then slows to a steady rate. With a sigh of despair, he raises his head. A faceless, pure white figure stands in front of him. Rick squints his eyes, almost like he is trying to look directly into the sun. The figure looks like a pure white being of light, with no features other than it is a humanoid figure, 2 arms, 2 legs, no clothing, yet no other features, standing at the same height as Rick. "Hello, who are you?" Rick said, expecting a response. Moments pass. "What's your name?" Moments pass again. The silence seems deafening. "Where am I? Can you speak?" Rick looking for any kind of response, examining possible hand movements, any kind of body gestures. The white being stands there still. Screaming from the top of his lungs. "Why won't you help me?" Whispering as his head drops with despair, along with his shoulders and arms dropping. Rick looks at the white being's feet in silence, noticing it has started to move toward him. Looking up, he sees the white being bending down slightly, their left hand leaning on their knee as it bends down, while their right hand reaches out to Rick, gesturing to take its hand. The white being continues to look onwards at Rick, tilting its head, almost as if it has done this out of curiosity. "Do you want me to take your hand?" Rick said, slowly reaching out to grab the hand. "What's your name?" Rick asked once more. The white being closes his hand around Rick, helping him to his feet. "You're smiling," Rick said in shock, as the white being has no facial features. A sudden white flash coming from the body of the white being envelopes everything, blinding Rick's vision. The sound of dripping water can be heard, hitting and splashing off a hard surface. It echoes with ease. An occasional soft bell ring can be heard going off in the distance, and new noises can start to be heard nearby. "I've heard these sounds before," whispering to himself. Slowly opening his eyes, looking around. It looks like he is back in the same place as before. As his senses return, he hears light breathing surrounding him. He panics and props himself off the straw bed. Examining the area, he reaffirms himself. It's the same place as before, but there seems to be small baby creatures dotted around him inside the straw beds. The baby creatures look almost identical to the large creature from the entrance. "Calm down, Rick. I know I can figure this out. I'm not dead yet." After reaffirming himself, he leans closer to one of the smaller creatures. "Disgusting," whispering softly to himself. When staring at the creature in front of him, he notices a small icon at the side of his vision. He looks in different directions and realizes the icon is following his view. After a few moments of squinting his eyes and blankly staring forward, the small icon opens up into a large text-based menu with various options. Looking over some of the options, the first one is flashing at him in an orange text color. Quests new. In his mind, he imagined multiple ways to try and select the button, and it suddenly opened another menu. Whoa, I did it. Quest Escape the Goblin Hive. Bonus Quest 1, pick your class. Bonus Quest 2, Enrollment as a Goblin. Rewards 200 XP and 10 N silver coins. Bonus Reward 1, Weapon from Class Choice. Bonus Reward 2, 10 N silver coins. Escape the Goblin Hive. I'm in a Goblin Cave. Is that what these creatures are? Baby Goblin S, speaking softly to himself, almost as if expecting an answer back. The interface suddenly disappears. No, it ain't happening. Rick said whilst looking over his body, arms and legs, and then comparing them to the small goblins in front of himself. His eyes open wide in shock, letting his eyes wander, looking around at the environment, then looking at the goblin babies, one at a time. I'm a goblin, horrible, disgusting, a monster. Why didn't I just die? Is this hell? Does every person who is like me come here to be turned into a monster for what they deserve? Rick's eyes still wandering, they lock onto another set of eyes staring straight back at him. A baby goblin lays in its bed, with no movement, no crying, its eyes wide open, giving an intense stare at Rick, watching his every movement, listening to every word. Do you understand me? Rick said, awaiting a response from the goblin. A shiver suddenly runs down Rick's back. Rick's eyes darted to the exit where he fell unconscious at the entrance of the cave. Where is it? Rick said softly to himself. Standing fully back onto his two baby goblin legs, he starts to waddle towards the cave doorway. Reaching about halfway, Rick starts to breath heavily. A small amber icon appears in the bottom left corner of Rick's view. Doing the same as before to open the previous menu, the interface jumps from the corner of his view into a large menu. Status New. Exhaustion Level 1. Abilities, environment, or status can increase your exhaustion level. If you reach level 6, death will occur. Baby Goblin. As a baby, you're constantly growing, causing exhaustion levels. Rest is required to reset this. Exhaustion levels will increase for every action done. Too much exhaustion as a baby will cause unconsciousness, avoiding the death status. A few moments pass as he looks at the interface in front of him. Frustration builds across his face. A sigh is released, and the interface closes once again. Rick turns around and starts to take a couple of strides towards the exit. Every step, the amber icon flashes, tracking his every step or action. With no sign of the large goblin, Rick pauses to catch his breath, looking back to see how much progress he has achieved. Noticing baby goblin from before, is still staring at him, watching his every move with intense interest. As he reaches closer to the exit, his little goblin feet start to feel little tremors. Oh no, the tremors are slowly getting stronger. Rick's heart starts pounding, cold sweat starts forming around his face. Standing right next to the doorway, Rick quickened his pace. Walking through the exit, his eyes widened, seeing a large open cave. The smell of smoke from burning wood envelopes his senses. Spotting a large fire pit in the middle of the cave area, along with multiple large goblins. They are dotted about the cave, going about their tasks. A rancid smell of rotting flesh and feces invades his nostrils a few moments later. With the shock and awe overwhelming him, suddenly hearing a noise from the side, Rick turns around to face it. "Aw fuck, I forgot about you." Rick tilting his head backwards to view the large goblin standing in front of him. The goblin grunts with anger. Rick's heart beats still pounding away from the exhaustion. A time to run would be now, turning around to run the other way. Rick gets side-swiped by the goblin's large foot slamming into him, which then launches him into the wall of the cave. Arg. Oh no, not Aga. Rick spurts out before falling unconscious. Rick's arms stretch out in front of him, letting out a big yawn with his wide goblin mouth. "Third time's the charm," Rick states after realizing where he is, frowning due to the déjà vu creeping over him for a second time. "Wyatt," Rick whispers to himself. Rick's eyes open wide, noticing that his perception of the world has changed. Everything seems smaller. Looking down at his feet, they are no longer the little dumpy baby feet he once had. A look of comprehension shoots across his goblin face. Standing up on his 2 feet without any effort at all, Rick starts jumping up and down. "Ha, how easy." Rick brings up his status menu once again. A series of new status and traits appear in front of him. Status new. Hunger X1, you are hungry. If you reach level 6, death will occur. Thirst X1, you are thirsty. If you reach level 6, death will occur. Traits new. Enhanced vision. Your vision is improved. You're able to see better in low light conditions. Pocket-sized wrath. You deal extra damage to a creature, which is of larger size than you. Nimble abscondence. You can disengage from combat without retaliation. Language Goblin. You now understand the Goblin language. After viewing the new status and trait S, Rick smirks at the pocket-sized trait. Guess I'm not something to be messed with, starting with a smile and then looks around after closing the interface, realizing that the sounds that he heard before are no longer around. Rick looks around. There's no other goblins around. Only the noises coming from the exit can be heard. With the feeling that he shouldn't overstay his welcome, he made a quick dash to the exit. Just as he reached the exit, 3 goblins of various sizes come into the cave. The first goblin, the largest of the 3, pushes Rick back into the center of the current area as it walks in. Losing his balance, Rick lands on his flat on his ass. All 3 of them are staring at Rick as he falls backwards. Rick stands back up and starts dusting himself off. The goblins are looking at him from top to bottom. The first goblin, wearing a skinned wolf head on its own head, is holding a very large scimitar. It waves the sword in front of Rick. The sword is being waved about while shouting some kind of rough language towards Rick. Glick, Glarg no, Nick, no, he no good, he bad warrior. The wolf-headed goblin throws down his scimitar to his side and starts walking away in anger. Just before it reaches the exit, it suddenly walks back quickly to pick up its scimitar it dropped, and then leaves towards the cave exit. The remaining 2 goblins look at each other, then at Rick. The next goblin has some kind of bone necklace around its neck, with hand-crafted pilums on its back, and a small rusty dagger by its side belt. It looks much more like a trapper of sorts. Its wide red beady eyes open wide and close narrow, as if emphasizing some kind of inspection is occurring. Glick, Nick, not good for hunting, can't trap nothing. The trapper goblin sticks its large pointy nose in Rick's face and snorts at him just before it walks away, following the previous direction of the other goblin that stormed off. The last goblin, though, seems to have a liking for Rick. It rubs its chin multiple times, walking back and forth, almost as if it's contemplating something and if it would be worth its time. This goblin is older, skinny, looks frail, and when it leans in to inspect Rick's face, the smell of rotten and dried-out food invades Rick's nostrils. Not only does its breath reek, it's giving of some kind of rancid musk smell as it walks back and forth past him. With what looks to be a large stave and an abnormally large crow's skull attached to the top of it. This stick is being slammed into the ground as the goblin walks back and forth, like a form of walking stick. Rick, having no idea what's just occurred or what will happen next, he tries to speak up. Hey, it's not what it looks like. I'm not a goblin, I just woke up like this. You have to help. Just as Rick was away to finish his sentence, the older goblin quickly reaches out and puts a large bony finger against Rick's lips. A pungent smell comes off the old goblin's finger. As the goblin speaks, it lifts the finger from Rick's mouth. Shhhh, Nick, speak not, only do as I tell, you goblin now, tell none. Soon after the finger leaves his lips, unintentionally Rick licks his lips. The taste of stomach acid reaches his mouth, his throat holding back the flow of vomit currently being directed towards his unsuspecting victim. A large swallow proceeds, pushing down, God knows what, as he hasn't eaten a single thing since arriving to this world. You have strong mana, the old goblin shouting at Rick. He finishes swallowing what was remaining in his throat from the sudden shock at being shouted at. What do you mean by, I have strong mana? What is mana? Rick asks. The old goblin lifts its staff upward since the creature only stands at 4 feet high. The staff didn't have far to move. After reaching its peak, it starts to vibrate gently. Dust particles start to appear and seem to sparkle in the light. The goblin starts to speak a language which Rick doesn't understand at all. As the old goblin mutters away, the dust particles seem to take shape around the top of the staff. A flash of light encompasses the area, blinding Rick. After Rick opened his eyes again, a small creature appears to be standing in front of him. This tiny creature, it's red all over, has wings, with tiny horns protruding out of its small head. Rick's eyes widened with amazement. What the hell just happened? Rick looks at the old goblin in shock. I summon imp, it fights for me. The old goblin has its chin up in pride, then suddenly throws the staff into Rick's arms. Rick almost dropping it. He inspects the staff. It's basically an old withered stick with a skull of a dead creature on it. How's it meant to do that? Wait, I'm meant to do the same. Rick looks up from the staff in his hands towards the imp. It's no longer there. Dark smoke raises slowly from where it once stood. A disgusting smell now emanates from the smoke. Go on, try now. The old goblin shouts while it stands there, pointing at the smoke. How am I meant to do this? Says Rick, as he looks at the staff once again, now noticing that it has some form of runes inscribed into the back of the skull. Unable to read them, words start to form in his mind. From the words, a voice in his mind starts speaking. The voice starts getting louder and stronger, almost like it's starting to scream into his ears. They get to a certain point where Rick can't stand the noise in his head anymore. Pain shoots to every part of his body from his head. Say words you hear, the old goblin shouts. Rick listens and tries to say the words he is hearing. The words pour from his mouth in great precision. The dust particles shine and sparkle like once before, gathering around the top of the staff. Rick's face contorts from the shock and tries his hardest to see through the bright light appearing in front of him. It looks like it's being built right there in front of me. Confusion and awe is shown all over Rick's face. Rick questions himself with what he sees, turning around to face the old goblin. "Goo wad, better to be shaman than worker," says the old goblin, looking at Rick in a devious way. "Follow." The old goblin snatches the staff from Rick, then continues to walk on towards the exit of the cave. Looking back and around the current area he is in, seeing nothing but straw matting and soiled cloth, he follows the goblin into the next area. As Rick is walking into the next area, it widens up into a larger cave system. The first thing that catches his eye is a large bonfire, currently lit, burning away all the wood which is thrown onto the pile. The smoke rises upwards and hits the roof. It seems the roof structure has been scraped away into a smooth crevice which directs the smoke along the ceiling towards another exit point in the cave system, presumably outside. Surrounding the bonfire, there are a lot of straw matting beds, random objects which look like they might be necks for the bonfire. Quite a few of the bedding areas are occupied with sleeping goblins. Following behind the old shamanistic goblin, shouting and screaming catches Rick's attention. "Stupid, tiny goblin." A tall goblin is taking long breaths in between, lashing a smaller goblin with a whip. From the gasping between lashes, it must have been attacking the small goblin for a while. "Me, better me, lasher me, stronger, do as I tell." The tall goblin lashes one final time and then walks over and kicks the small goblin over onto its side. I do, me listen," shouts the small goblin whilst in pain. The lasher goblin kicks the other goblin multiple times and finishes by stomping the goblin's face into the dirt. The tall goblin, being completely exhausted, straightens up, takes a few deep breaths and starts to walk away. As the lasher turns it back, the small goblin pulls its face out of the mud, all bloodied, its face with rage. Reaching under its loin cloth, it pulls a shiv out, jumping onto the back of the lasher goblin, writhing the small blade into the neck of the lasher goblin multiple times, over and over again until the tall goblin is no longer moving. A sudden fleshy thump is heard throughout the cave. All the goblins that heard it look towards the small goblin now covered in blood. What remains of the dead lasher's blood trickles out onto the floor. Rick's jaw drops from the sudden rush of violence that he just witnessed. The rest of the goblins in the cave system just seem to turn around and continue what they were doing without a second thought. The small goblin snatches the whip from the dead goblin, yanking it from the still warm hand. It takes little effort to pull the whip from the hand of the already dead goblin. During the same movement to grab the whip, the small goblin spits at the flesh heap on the ground. "Me lasher now, me boss now, yak." Raising the whip into the air, it lets out a shriek of a laugh. Echoes of laughter flow throughout the cave area. "Shit, what is this place?" Rick whispers to himself as he turns his back to the scene he just witnessed, now continuing to follow the shaman goblin around yet another corner of the cave system. As he enters this new area, a stone ledge comes into view with a chair atop of it. The chair is old and worn down, with one of the chair arms broken. A large goblin sits atop of this throne. It's currently looking down at Rick while leaning on the other chair arm. The goblin stands, reaching 5 feet in height roughly. A rusty makeshift crown with various shiny objects adorn the top of it, including a large gold coin on the front. One might say this could be the King Goblin. King Gob. Newborn, strong with magic's powerful shaman, it could be, said the old goblin, cackling, whilst pointing in Rick's direction. The Goblin King jumps down from the high ledge, dust shifting from where its feet hit the ground. The king's eyes meet Rick's with large red bauble eyes. They proceed to narrow, eyes of suspicion encroach him. A tense feeling of fear and anxiety flows over Rick. "Goblin's name," the Goblin King said in a slow manner as it walked around Rick, inspecting him from top to bottom. The old goblin next to Rick speaks up. "No name, freshly born, Nick. Strong mana, kick, make for a good magics caster." The Goblin King stares down at Rick. Trizick, this goblin now Trizick, Jick, I command." The king jumps from his spot back up onto the ledge and sits down on his broken chair, swinging its legs over the arm of the chair, leaning back as if a tough task was finally completed. The Goblin King waves the two of them away. "Go, give Trizick magic weapon, I command." An interface pop-up appears within Rick's perception range. Quest Escape the Goblin Hive, in progress. Bonus Quest 2, Enrollment as a Goblin, completed. Following the shaman goblin into a smaller room of the same cave system. The cave curves around into what looks to be an armory of some sort. The goblin that Rick has been following around turns to him. "Here weapons, YOU-MAJEK caster. You need staff." Reaching down and grabbing a gnarled stick, and then pulling a skull off the belt on its hip. It then scratches what looks to be a glyph into the top of the skull. The glyph glows red, and the surrounding area sparkles from the dust in the air. Then stabbing the skull onto the gnarled staff, forcing the skull to be jammed onto the stick. "Here, take Nick." Handing Rick the staff, he reaches out to take it. A feeling of dread comes over him. I can't, something will happen." The old goblin looking at him, eyes wide from the refusal, then narrowing in anger and impatience. Walking towards Rick, the goblin grabs his hand and shoves the staff into it. A circling wind surrounds Rick. Within this wind, dust particles start burning up into the air like hot ashen flakes. Bonus Quest, Pick Your Class completed. Quest Escape the Goblin Hive, in progress. Bonus Quest 1, Pick Your Class completed. The goblin in front of Trizick turns once more to him. "You shaman, you only follow King Gob's orders. You go make warband. Get stronger, come when King Gob needs you and fight for King Gob." The shaman now standing still, pointing at the exit of the armory with a large grin on his face. As Trizick approaches the main cave area, the sounds of snoring can be heard from nearby creatures, a rancid smell of rotting flesh and feces. Looking around at the surrounding area, Trizick ascertains it is used as a form of living squat area. Many goblins have taken up finding a space to make sleeping pits and beds from straw and soiled leather scraps, with a large fire pit sitting in the center of the area, most likely used for cooking. Near the fire pit, a small goblin is seen in a panic whilst looking for something. Piquing his interest, Trizick decided to see what the small goblin was fretting about. "Hey, have you lows?" A cough erupts from Trizick, clearing his throat. "Small Gobo lost something," he said in a high pitch. "You sick?" the goblin says back. No, said Trizick, clearing his throat again. "Trizick strong, healthy. What you lost?" he said to the goblin in front of him. "Meester Gibble s he missing gone, help me he good friend long friend. Give you shiny coin if you help me, eh?" said the goblin in distress. A sudden rush of uncontrollable guilt came over Trizick, being reminded of that time when a kid asked him to buy him another ice cream because he walked into the kid without realizing, when rushing to his next job location. Feeling the time pressure, he just gave the kid a load of yen to shut him up and move on. Realizing he can't do that in this situation, he decided to do what any customer service agent would do. "Me look for it, but only when free. Get back to you if I find it," said Trizick with a big smile. "You trying to get one up on me? You smile big, you trying to get shiny coin without returning Mr. Gibbles," says the distressed goblin, worrying that Trizick might shaft him and steal his coin due to the creepy smile he received. "No, no, me honest goblin will try to help you even without a coin. We'll look for Mr. Gibbles when free," Trizick said, and then immediately started walking away to try and not make the situation worse. As he walks away, a new pop-up appears in his vision. Quest new, find Mr. Gibbles, in progress. Rewards 200 XP and 1 shiny coin. As he walks through the main area and past the bonfire, a small entrance opens up in front of Trizick. A little fence seems to corner the area off. It has a small gate to allow access. The fence is only 1.5 feet tall, same goes for the gate. Beside the wooden gate, a little sign sits propped up against the fence, stating "Dinny think about it, boss's treasure." The sign is badly written, but Trizick seems to understand the language easily somehow. As he looks beyond the fence, a large pile of dirt is seen. Mixed into the dirt pile are large gold, silver, and bronze coins. The amount of coins on display looks to be 3 gold, 5 silver, and 4 bronze. Trizick, having never seen this type of coin before, tries to get a closer look by leaning past the fence. On closer inspection, he can see what the gold coin looks like. It appears to be square-shaped, but with 2 concave sides, making it have a dog bone or a bow tie shape to it. An engraving of possibly a wolf-like head is stamped on the coin, along with 3 droplets below the jaw of the creature, guessing that it's probably blood from the creature's mouth due to biting into something. The rest of the coins are too far away to even attempt to guess. A sudden noise of rubble crumbling was heard from above Trizick's head. Looking upwards, he can't see anything which might have caused the noise. The roof is full of stalactites, a form of rock which forms from ceilings in caves. Trizick remembers an old saying which he once heard to learn the difference between the 2 types. Stalactites hold on tight, stalagmites grow with MIGHT. Just as he finished that thought, a large stalactite fell from the ceiling, nearly crushing his head, before pulling it back from across the fence. Trizick's eyes widen as he watches the stalactite crawl across the floor quickly and dive into the dirt pile with all the coins. While in shock, he still stares at the area the stalactite just dived into. Without realizing, a giant rat stares back at him from atop of the pile. Trizick finally realizes he has a small set of beady eyes staring right across from him. The rat probably being the size of a small cat, but it seems a lot larger to him due to his small goblin body. The rat squeaks at him, then tilting its head to the right. Trizick clocking on that this might be Mr. Gibbles after remembering the quest to recover the rat to earn a shiny coin. Trizick immediately looks for something to entice the small creature his way, trying to avoid another near miss with the creature on the roof. He manages to find a bit of rotten bread which he found under a makeshift bed, which he guesses another goblin was probably saving for a hungry day. "Here, boy, look what I got," he whispers towards the rat. Nice tasty bit of bread," shaking his hand about as if he's about to throw a ball for a dog. The rat's head moves side to side as it watches the bread, then gives a small squeak and starts walking towards him. "So close. Come on, little guy, come just a wee bit further," said Trizick to the rat, who is just a few inches away from his held-out hand. Trizick reaches out a little further with both his hands, getting ready to attempt a grab attempt. "Fuck's sake," Trizick shouted as another stalactite nearly hit him, crushing the rat, forming a red mist which encircled the stalactite which had impaled itself into the rat. Its mouth opens and closes with a ferocious snapping motion. Trizick stares at the dead rat, realizing it could have been him instead. In dismay, He walks away from the treasure pit, leaving the results of his hard work behind and letting the bread slip from his hand. Walking back to the goblin he got the quest from. Trizick walked back to the main cave and found the goblin, which gave him the quest for finding Mr. Gibbles. The goblin looks Trizick up and down, seeing that he has blood splatters across his face and chest. Then suddenly the goblin's eyes open wide and a smile creeps across his face. "You found it. You found Mr. Gibbles," the goblin said. Trizick looked at the goblin in disbelief when suddenly a small squeak was heard behind Trizick. Turning around, Trizick saw a rat of fairly small proportions standing in front of him. The rat was holding the same piece of bread which Trizick had dropped earlier in the fenced-off area. "You really good Gobo, me happy." The goblin starts walking past Trizick, shoving a coin in his hand, and then proceeding to pick up the rat which was already eating the bread. A blinking light appears in front of Trizick, then a menu box appears with the following. Quest: find Mr. Gibbles. Completed. Rewards: 200 XP and 1 shiny coin. A large scream was heard throughout the cave, a scream of death. Sending chills down Trizick's back, looking in the direction from where the scream came from. The menu box closes without any thought and he sees a small goblin walking through the cave entrance which leads toward King Gob's area. The small goblin started screaming, "Bargist! Ah! Save me!" As the goblin tries to walk further towards the fire pit, Trizick notices the goblin is missing half of its arm, like it has been bitten off completely, almost like a shark bite. The remaining parts of the arm, flailing around as the goblin screams, waving its arms about in fear. The main fire pit in the central part of the cave changes shape and color. It erupts into a large green flame, waving back and forth as if the atmosphere itself is pushing it back and forth. A large wolf-like shadow can be seen on the back wall, being cast from somewhere further in the cave. The shadow can be seen making a howling action. Moments pass in complete silence with all the goblin watching the shadow. A great howl then proceeds to echo throughout the cave system. Nearby goblins proceed to scream in fear, their eyes turning glowing bright red, then running in different directions. One of them ends up knocking Trizick to the ground. As Trizick tries to lift himself back up from the floor, he starts to panic, looking left and right for any sign of the wolf creature the shadow portrayed. A goblin has started running toward Trizick, the goblin's shadow casting that of a giant wolf. The goblin leaps at Trizick in force. He looks up from the ground, noticing its eyes are glowing red in fury with a cast shadow of the giant wolf creature. Trizick, still prone, rolls to the side just before the goblin lands. At first glance, it's nothing more than a normal goblin, small, wiry, yellow teeth and beady red intelligent eyes. An eerie feeling of dread flows over Trizick. Something is wrong. The way this goblin moves, it's too perfect. Almost like a predator which has been wearing its prey's skin for far too long. A smile creeps out and lingers far too wide, yellow teeth which are far too sharp. Its shadow stretches and writhes, as if there is something inside wanting out, waiting for the time to emerge. The skin starts to split open like a husk of rotten flesh. A towering, skeleton wolf stands in front of Trizick, with its flesh and muscle matter on display. Its elongated face has a grin carved too deep. The eyes are smoldering pits of fire from the abyss itself. Its limbs start to move in unnatural jerks, almost as if it's just a puppet. With the horrific speed of a hungry predator, its claws swipe a nearby goblin, then stepping on those remains, ensuring its prey is completely drained of life before looking back at Trizick. Slowly walking towards him, Trizick can smell its breath. Foul, rotting breath, carrying every screaming soul it has ever devoured into its gullet. Its howls are like an ancient nightmare, something forgotten, something no one could ever forget. Finally, you're here.